Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
What are the challenges and opportunities for the next generation of American farmers and ranchers? We'll talk with a group of beef industry professionals about some of the biggest issues facing our industry.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Oxner. Thanks for joining us. The Earth's population continues to grow, and the U.S. beef industry has a critical role to play in feeding this growing population. But to do that, we need beef producers that want to return to their family businesses and opportunities for new farmers and ranchers to establish their own operations. So how do we get people interested and excited about raising cattle and ensure those already in the business actually want to stick around? Today, we've got a great group of producers here to share some wisdom about those issues and how we might want to tackle them. Dr. Levi Hold is from Tennessee. Levi, tell us just a little bit about yourself and your operation.
Sure. I'm a doctor of veterinary medicine in Tennessee and licensed in Kentucky as well. My wife Caroline and I have 3 children. Bonnie is 6, Will is 5, and Tucker is soon to be 3. We own and operate our veterinary practice, Green River Embryo Transfer, which focuses on advanced reproductive technologies in cattle, so embryo collection, transfers, freezing. We also do a little bit of bull work as well. And then we're also part of the family purebred cattle operation. We raise registered Black Angus to sell bulls to commercial producers and replacement females as well.
Next is Amelia Levin Kent of Louisiana. Amelia, tell us a little bit about yourself and your operation.
Thank you. Alongside my husband Russell, we own and operate Kent Farms LLC. We raise commercial cattle, predominantly a cow-calf operation, but for the past almost 8 years, we've been integrating in not only replacement heifers, but also stocker cattle. We're due north of Baton Rouge, so we fully take advantage of a winter grazing environment. And on a personal note, we added in a toddler to the mix, so we have a 2.5-year-old at home named Avery. So she loves the farm, and we hope that we have the next generation in the throes.
Outstanding. And also from Louisiana, Brandon Du Bois. Brandon, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. So we live in a small town in north central Louisiana. My wife and 3 children. I've got my oldest daughter, Addison, she's 12. A middle daughter, Avery, she's 10 years old. And my little boy, he's 2, and Porter. And so it's a family business. We're a purebred operation where we raise Brahma cattle, first generation. So it's been tough getting started with equipment cost and everything, but we're there. We did own a cow-calf operation before the seed stock, and we sold out and decided to go purebred. So
outstanding. And we're glad to have with us another Colorado native, Dan McCarty. Dan, tell us a little bit about your background.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I'm from Rifle, Colorado, on the western slope. My wife and I run a registered purebred operation. We raise Gelvian Balancer bulls. We sell some bulls, but in 2021, because of continued drought and some lost leases, we had kind of a quasi-dispersal sale. We now focus on a group of about 10 cows that we've been doing a lot of flush work on. We do this while I carry a full-time job at NCBA. I travel around the West working with the state affiliates on membership and making sure producers are involved in NCBA. I also staff the Livestock Marketing Council. My wife also works full-time as the Assistant State Veterinarian for the Colorado Department of Agriculture. So we got a lot going on in the beef business, but it's not all just on the farm and ranch.
Well, I'm anxious to talk to each one of you about that, because I think one of the reasons you've been invited is there's a little something unique about each one of your operations. And so why don't you begin, Dan? Tell us what's kind of unique or special about your operation.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for us is I'm a 4th generation cattleman, but we really didn't have a family operation to go home and take over. So we kind of started from scratch. I would say the most unique thing about our operation is we don't own an acre of land. We run exclusively on lease, which creates a lot of opportunities and also a lot of challenges as far as trying to make sure they're long-term and that sort of thing. And that's kind of what we ran into the last few years with land values and what I would call the COVID land rush. A lot of ground changed hands, A lot of folks maybe want to run cows where we used to run cows. We've been selling bulls for about 20 years, and we're changing that model right now because cow numbers have went down in the West, of course, because of the continued drought. We just don't have the opportunity to run them like we used to, so we're just looking for some other opportunities. And there's a lot of opportunities out there. You just kind of have to be flexible sometimes to let them find you, I guess.
Fair statement. Brandon, what's unique and special about your outfit?
Yeah, so our operation, we're constantly busy, of course, with kids running around and full-time jobs. I work for John Deere full-time, and I have an auction business as well. And like I said, we own and operate a purebred Brahma herd. And just getting out there, trying the new things that's going on in the industry and focusing on, our industry and how to promote our business to the public.
So Amelia, what is a little unique and special about your business?
Thank you. As with all of the panelists, our business is a family business. We're a local small business. My husband Russell is a 6th-generation farmer, and I'm a 5th-generation farmer. But as Dan mentioned, our business is ours from the ground up. When we each met, we each had small herds of our own. So as we were planning a wedding, we were also combining businesses. And you hear the story quite frequently in agriculture, and especially in the cattle business, that, young people just can't make it. Young people can't get started. Young people can't get a go. And frankly, that's not been our story. When we met, in fact, when we were married, we ultimately combined 150 cows. We were both 27 when we got married, and my husband had a very clearly stated goal that by the age 30, he wanted 100 cows paid for. Well, by the time we hit 30, we were 300 cows half paid for. So we've been on an expansion track in a contracting cycle, no less. But we've been really fortunate through predominantly leased property to continue to expand. We actually were able to purchase our own property 8 years ago, which now serves as our headquarters. And it's awfully difficult to make cows pay for a land note, but we're making it happen. But we've continued to pick up leases and continued to expand. So at this point, we're over 400 mama cows and 200 to 300 yearlings and heifers at any given point. And Dan also mentioned the off-farm aspect. We don't have employees. We are the employees. Right. And frankly, I work on the farm and my husband works off the farm with farm credit. Now we are very fortunate to have a neighborly dynamic when it comes to herd work. So we have neighbors come help us, and in turn we return the favors. But we self-perform most of our work.
Levi, what makes your business unique?
We kind of have to combine operations, I guess, if you will, just like a lot of the other panelists had mentioned about teamwork and working together as a family unit to achieve a lot of common goals. Mm-hmm. So our practice, Green River Embryo Transfer, works hand in hand with our cattle business, which would be Holt Farms. We house a lot of donors at the farm for people. We provide recip options there. And then, that's just another source of revenue for our cattle side as well. And on the cattle side, we've also kind of branched out and diversified as well, and are selling some locally grown beef to consumers in the area, in addition to marketing bulls to commercial producers and females as well.
So obviously the next question is, each one of you had some unique challenges getting started, and I'm curious, let's start with you, Amelia. I mean, what do you consider to be some of the key challenges for somebody wanting to get started in this business?
I think land availability is a common challenge, regardless of your location and demographics. I mean, I have Colorado roots, and we've had several conversations about how the Front Range that I grew up on doesn't look like it was when I was a kid. And fast forward, and we're actually in a suburban area not far from Baton Rouge either. So watching land prices, but land availability on leased property, that's a significant challenge. And I'd also add working capital. I mean, we're not in a position to go pull 6 figures out of our pocket free and clear. And so the education of business behind the cattle industry. It's one thing to know the animal husbandry and the management, but frankly, I think that everyone needs to keep in mind it's a business first.
So Levi, what would you say would be some of the key challenges getting started?
Yeah, as Amelia mentioned, in our area in Tennessee, we're losing a lot of rural ground to development and expansion of cities and municipalities. So, finding that ground that someone will either allow you to lease or purchase to run cattle on is a big hurdle for us. And there again, having the finances to get started and acquiring that is a huge undertaking, especially for a young person that is looking to get into the industry. So those would be the two biggest issues that I see that young producers now face in this climate.
Dan, we know a little bit about development in Colorado, but what else would be some of the challenges that you all faced as you were trying to get reestablished in this business?
I really would just echo what everybody else said, land values. I mean, we talked about the Front Range of Colorado. I'm actually on the other side of the state in the mountains, headed out to the desert. It's literally become America's playground lately. And, a 100-cow operation in the mountains of Colorado, you're looking at laying out $20 to $25 million. And there's just no way that that's ever going to pencil out. So, I don't want to sound discouraging to people, but the dream of, ranch ownership and, growing up and owning a farm or a ranch like Grandpa did, we kind of have to readjust our sights probably if we really want to be in the cattle business. We're just going to have to rethink how we're going to get that done.
Brandon, what would you add?
Dr. Holt had mentioned that, just getting started, the cost of everything. Equipment today is just so expensive. You look at a hay baler and a tractor. That was probably our biggest challenge, getting started, being a first generation cattleman. And of course, we have to work full-time jobs, both me and my wife. So.
Well, one of the common denominators, it sounds, is you all have an incredible amount of perseverance. And it takes perseverance to get started and established in this business. What advice would you give the young producer who's watching tonight?
So I guess I kind of look at it like the way I envisioned it for myself was I looked kind of into the future, and I had an idea in my mind, this is kind of where I want to be, and this is what I want to do, what my business should look like. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we formulated a plan to kind of work towards that and kind of get to that area. Outside of that is probably find a mentor, someone that has similar goals and is doing something similar to what you would like to do, and kind of align yourself with that person and get to know them and pick their brain about how they got to where they are and how they're doing what they're doing, and model a lot of what you do after that.
Levi spoke about goals. It sounded like those were very important to you and your family. What would you add?
One thing that I think is crucial is you're never done learning. When someone's complacent, they're done. Their story is over. They may not know it. They may have a little bit of time left to play it out, but don't get complacent, especially in the challenging times that this market is showing.
Brandon?
I think one thing that I did and I would recommend to anybody that's getting into the industry is definitely get involved. I was involved with YCC through NCBA. I was involved in my local cattlemen's group. I was involved with the state cattlemen's group. And I've met a lot of people, and networking is I think it's a key thing. Dr. Holt had mentioned, get a mentor. And if you're involved in different groups, you have a lot of mentors that can help you through the process.
Dan?
I would say don't be afraid of being told no. You're going to find some interesting partnerships that you probably didn't expect that are going to pop up. And I think the third thing is, they say opportunity is often disguised as something that looks like hard work. And, in our small communities we come from, there's always people watching what we're doing. And when the generations that own the land and own the cattle and own the resources see how hard of a worker you are, that often opens doors for you. So, you're always being watched, but people do take notice of what you do.
If I may add to Dan's point, back to one of my original statements about the trajectory, we've been on a growth trajectory, and I think it's a testament to Dan's point. The older generations of landowners and perhaps producers are looking out there and not seeing nearly as many younger people interested. And I mean, you have to be a hard worker, you have to be a good manager, but we've had opportunities present themselves to us without having to go out and look really hard for them.
That's really encouraging. Coming up, we'll focus on some of the opportunities ahead for the next generation of beef producers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Weeds will rob me of my investments. The weeds are not palatable to cows. They will not eat them, or if they do eat them, some of them may be toxic. So there's a return on investment by allowing there to be more grass available to be grazed by the cattle.
Are you looking for top quality genetics to improve your herd? Then check out Whitestone Farms' 30th annual performance tested bull and female sale Saturday, May 6th. It's an opportunity to buy some of the best cattle in the industry, including sons from the Angus breed's top bulls. Whitestone Farm uses cutting-edge genetic technology to produce cattle with eye appeal and high performance. For a sale catalog, visit whitestonefarm.com.
We're back now with our group of innovative young beef producers, and I want to talk a little bit about a subject that each of you mentioned, and that is the sheer capital required to get established in this business. We know, as you've indicated, that it's difficult to make a cow herd pay for themselves and pay for land and pay for living expenses and everything else. I'm curious what role off-farm income has played in your operation. Dan?
Well, the big thing on social media now is the side hustle, and it seems like farmers and ranchers are kind of the original creators of the side hustle. Again, I work for NCBA full-time. It's a great opportunity to network and get out there and meet other producers, but I also have an auctioneering business as well. I also recently started a seed stock marketing business with a really good friend and partner that I own some bulls with. We saw an opportunity there, so we started managing some production sales and some bull sales. There's just a lot of opportunities out there to make money that's off the farm, and people need to do that in agriculture. We need to kind of take that stigma away from that, but those opportunities are out there. I'm just a lucky guy to where all my side hustles are related to the cattle business because I am just super passionate about cattle business and cattlemen and women.
Excellent. Brandon, you said you work for John Deere.
I do. I work all North Louisiana for John Deere on the row crop side of things. So I deal with all the technology and the harvest and precision agriculture is what I do there. And also I do have an equipment auction in Northeast Louisiana as well. So it definitely takes extra money to make the cow business go.
Now, you said, Amelia, that you are full-time at home, but your husband has off-farm income. Is that right?
Correct, Kevin. My husband does work off the farm with Farm Credit. He started that immediately out of college. And up until 2012, I also worked off the farm, but we were at a turning point, and at that point had confidence that the farm needed more of us outside of nights and weekends. And so we made that transition. And what the off-farm job allows us is the ability to reinvest in the farm. We've achieved our expansion because of that reinvestment. We live out of the paycheck, and very, very rarely do we have to pull from one or the other. Sure. But above and beyond that, we've talked about drought. We haven't really talked about market cycles, but the cattle market is cyclical, and sometimes it's not very good. And that off-farm income actually offers a lot of financial insulation as well as benefits and retirement and things that sometimes aren't very available at the end of the calf crop.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Holt, we obviously know what your off-farm income is. How has that complemented your ability to grow your actual cow business?
Sure. So it just acts as another source of revenue that we can put back into the cattle operation as well. One thing that I did not mention was my wife Caroline. She also does some digital marketing for some producers and catalog and web design for a couple of producers there in the area as well. So that's an additional source of income for us. But by and large, our mainstream is the veterinary practice.
So we've talked about adding revenue, but what about expenses? I mean, that's the challenge of our business right now, is managing everything from input costs to machinery to everything else. What are you finding successful in terms of strategies for managing the expense side of the business?
Sure. Just, the main thing is just really being conscious of where we're spending our dollars and are we getting the most return for that investment. all of our input costs have gone up significantly in the past couple of years, and it sure seems like our income is not following suit. So, really figuring out how we get the most bang for our buck is the biggest challenge in this type of market.
What about equipment? I have a John Deere guy sitting right next to somebody that has outsourced the haying. Tell us a little bit about your strategies.
We have had a whole fleet of hay equipment, and we recently sold it within the past 2 years. We still need the hay, no doubt, but we're reconciling equipment cost, repairs and maintenance, but depreciation as well. And back to, it's just the two of us. Sure. When we bought our hay equipment, we did not have the confidence in finding hay elsewhere. So we were very confident in buying our hay equipment when we did, but as other producers started doing custom work in our area and selling a lot more hay in our area, and we added a baby in the mix, and still, it's just the two of us. Sure. We really thought long and hard. Actually, when I was having, Avery was born in May, and when I was having baby, we were in ryegrass hay season, and neighbors picked up my baling responsibilities. I baled up until 2 weeks before she was born, and neighbors picked it up, but it was that first year that our wheels started turning about outsourcing, and the second year we still baled about half of our hay and outsourced half. But then we promptly sold the hay equipment, and it's been wonderful because we've been better managers. Sure. But then back to Dr. Holt's point about watching input costs, we're always focused on input cost. And down here we plant a lot of ryegrass and clovers as winter grazing. In fact, most of our weight gain is better achieved over the winter than summer grazing, just because of the heat. And trying to figure out that perfect balance of planting and mitigating machine costs.
Brandon, what would you add?
So yeah, I mean, our operation is similar. We also outsourced our hay as well, just because of the expense and diesel fuel and all that. So, pretty much the same. We look at our spending and really, look at the books and say, hey, do we need to spend this on our operation, or are we going to make money from it or not? So we really take a look at that and our expenses in our operation.
Dan?
I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of years when we started this operation, we went without some pieces of equipment or things that we wanted on the ranch, right? Yeah. But I think the last few years, what we've done to change things is we've invested in some technologies as far as labor saving, because just like a lot of you, it's just the two of us, right? So, when we have a whole bunch of money invested in a embryo calf that's getting ready to come, we've got some cameras now set up, and it felt like a big bite to get all that stuff set up to begin with. You got to lay out some money, but at the end of the day, it's actually a cost savings because we can be doing other things. I can pull up my phone and see what's going on over there. And I think just thinking those purchases through and figuring out how it's going to, not just save you money, but you have to save yourself time too when you have limited labor.
Yeah, I remember somebody telling me once, he said, on a ranch, you don't make money by saving it, you make money by spending what you have wisely. And I think that's good guidance for all of us. Direct marketing, we talked a little bit about that during the break. Several of you have diversified your income stream on the farm by going direct with your beef marketing. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So a couple years ago, we kind of looked at an overview of our operation, and we thought, where are we not capitalizing on values of these animals? And one thing that we noticed was, we felt like we could get more dollars out of our steer calves. So we really kind of put a pencil to it and decided, hey, can we increase the value of this animal by marketing direct to consumers? So we took the necessary steps, and we sell beef as a whole, half, quarter, or we sell it by the cut, by the piece at this point. So we don't market a lot in terms of numbers ahead. We strive for one a month. But just pulling out those 12 to 15 steers out of our calf crop every year really increased our revenue from that side of the business.
That's outstanding. Any other suggestions about direct marketing, Beef?
So in 2012, when I first came back to the farm full time, we also pursued direct marketing as a means of diversified income, and started with a restaurant focus. and actually have at this point meandered to custom beef as well. I'll only go down to halves and wholes and halves rather. If a household wants to share a half, then I encourage that, but I don't get into quarters. I do have retail labels, and I don't utilize them. Again, back to not enough of us to go around, and a certain liability associated with cold storage. I really, really like marketing custom beef. It's an excellent way to connect with the consumer. Again, it's lagniappe. It's such a small percentage of our business model, but it's very, very important to me.
I want to pick up on a comment you made earlier, and that was about mentors, right? So tell us what role mentors have had, Dr. Holt, and how do you invite our viewers to find a mentor?
Sure. So I've actually had a couple different mentors in my life. Probably the most influential for me would be the man that I bought my practice from, Dr. Herb Brown. He did our embryo transfer work on the farm for years. And I have always had a passion for reproduction in cattle, and so when I got out of vet school and was practicing there for a few years, and I decided I wanted to kind of go more down that road, you know, I just reached out to Dr. Brown, and he was kind of getting to a point in his life that he was ready to slow down and maybe retire. So he graciously took me under his wing and kind of taught me everything about the ET industry that that he knew, and we kind of worked out a deal that I would eventually buy his practice, and here we are today. So, it was really a blessing for me and my family. But the biggest thing that I would tell a young person is find someone in that field, that you respect and your goals align with, and just reach out to that person. As Dan mentioned earlier, don't be afraid to hear the word no, because sometimes it's going to happen. And if that does, then you just try to find another avenue.
Brandon, have you had mentors involved in your business?
Most definitely. I mean, as soon as I started the business, there was a guy around the house that we leased pasture together, and I learned a lot of stuff from him. We cut hay together, fed cattle together, and not only did I learn stuff from him, some things I learned what not to do, in the cattle business. So, but yes, I mean, I would tell anybody that's getting in there, hey, find somebody that can definitely help you out, because there's a lot of questions that you're going to have to figure out, and with that mentor, it definitely helps.
That's fantastic. Coming up, our panel will discuss the benefits of getting involved with both your state and national cattle organizations. Stay with us.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
There's never a dull moment for the Nelsons. Fifth-generation Montana ranchers. Since 1868, they've been herding cattle, reeling in trout, and exploring Paradise Valley from their backyard. Here's to another 150 years of adventure. There's a story in every piece of land. Run with us on a John Deere Gator XUV and start telling yours.
We're back with our panel of industry professionals who've each gotten very involved in their state and national cattle organizations, and I want to pick up the conversation with that. As far as your involvement in terms of either at the local, state, or national level, tell me more about that and the value you've received by making connections with other industry professionals. Dr. Holt?
So I'm a member of the Tennessee State Cattlemen's Association, as well as our home county, the Overton County Cattlemen's Association as well. So, being a part of that is really beneficial for us, is so we can, on the local level, connect with other producers, and which is mainly commercial cattlemen, and from a seed stock producer, that kind of gives us an insight into what they're looking for and what they need as well. On a state level, we can kind of work with other individuals in that organization to, talk about different policies, what's going on across the state. Tennessee, like other states in the country, is pretty diverse in how we manage and how we run cattle operations. What you see in West Tennessee is going to be completely different than what you see in East Tennessee. So, having that organization and that connection allows us to, hear inputs from members all across the state and find a common goal that works for everybody.
That's great. Tell us about your involvement.
As with Dr. Holt, I'm involved with numerous organizations from the local level all the way up to state and national. Some are cattle specific, but I've also gotten involved with Farm Bureau. I see so much involvement, so much benefit to involvement, and it's multifaceted. It is an understanding of policy issues. It's an understanding of program opportunities, whether it may be a disaster or a drought, and working with FSA or NRCS, may it be. I had the opportunity to serve on the Cattlemen's Beef Board for 6 years. I termed off a year ago, and through that, I also served on the Export Growth Committee and was able to learn about how much positive influence the U.S. Meat Export Federation has on our domestic cattle pricing, just because of their opportunities, the markets they're developing and contouring to help broaden our market access.
About $500 a head the last I looked.
Absolutely. I am such a fan of exports in general. And one of the examples I was given in a committee meeting was, who is interested in cow lips or tongue? But the export market actually really inflates the prices on some of those meats that we have a really hard time getting rid of domestically. So I can't speak enough about involvement. And when a state lobbyist has a saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And that is one of my mottos I live by.
It's a great comment. Brandon?
Great question, Kevin. I've always promoted Louisiana Cattlemen's and NCBA and been involved with both. And I'm the president of our local parish cattlemen's and president-elect for Louisiana Cattlemen. And like I said earlier, I was involved with YCC. So being connected, not only a local but state level and a national level, it means a lot. Whether it's policy, like Amelia said, or just learning how to educate our consumers about what we produce. So it's a very important deal to be involved.
Dan, you're the picture of involvement, but tell us, how has your involvement enabled you to make connections, build relationships, learn new skills that you've applied in your cattle business?
Sure. In my job with NCBA, I work with about 14 different state cattlemen's associations every day, making sure that producers are staying on top of the policies that are going to impact their daily lives on the farm or ranch. I'm also personally involved, with Colorado Cattlemen's Association and some of the issues we work on as far as policy in the state of Colorado. Very, very important for producers to stay on top of policy. Personally, I think we all have our own niche. I've gotten involved pretty heavily with the American Gelbvieh Association, which is our breed association. Finishing my second term on the board there, I had the honor of being the president for 2 terms. And for me, I'm super enthusiastic and excited about purebred cattle genetics, but the thing I didn't realize when I got on that board was the friends and business connections I was going to make in the breed association. I've been able to partner on some cows, partner on some bulls that I never would have been able to touch otherwise. And along the line, I've made some friends that I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life. So the connections are just invaluable.
Yeah. We've talked about education and the importance of being a continual lifelong learner, right? Tell us, where have you gone to get that education, and what would you guide folks who may be watching tonight who say, I need to know more about the business aspects, or I need to be a better marketer, or I need to understand more about livestock nutrition? What would you tell them?
That's a perfect segue coming from the question we just had, because so many of our organizational meetings have informative speakers. The topics presented at all of our meetings tend to be really informational. So that's a great start. Personally, I'm a super fan of anything business and economics focused. I actually, one of the questions I get regularly is, oh, well, you must have studied something ag, animal husbandry, or no, I studied economics and religion at a liberal arts school. Wow. But the economics of the business, I think, is not focused upon nearly enough.
Dr. Holt, what would you add?
I would just reiterate what Amelia said, attending your state conventions and things like that, and that most of those typically have great producer meetings and informative sessions. For me on the veterinary side of things, I have to do so many CE hours every couple of years. So, from that side, I also get, continued education, obviously. Breed associations, if you're into the purebred side of the cattle business, most of those have great opportunities for learning and different things, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be a traditional sense like you go and sit to a talk. Everybody's doing webinars and different things like that now. So the availability of that information is so much greater now than it used to be. So, finding something that you are interested in and you need work on, you can pretty much find it about anywhere if you look hard enough.
And Dan, obviously you've been to a number of NCBA conventions, which is a great source for education as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities at state cattlemen's meetings and at NCBA with Cattlemen's College and some of our partnerships like with the King Ranch Institute for Ranch Management, some of their lectureship series. I think as far as education goes, I'd take a little different approach. I'd say that the connections of the people you meet here and going back to what you said, learning how not to do things is sometimes the most important lesson. And I think meeting people from all over the country that you become friends with and develop relationships with. And if you can sit around, in a group like this and talk about things that were successful for you, maybe try this. I do it at home with a group of folks that are kind of my same age. We'll have coffee every now and then. And I think producers really love learning from other producers, and they really love hearing how they do things in other parts of the country. And that's really something that convention here at NCBA and state cattlemen's meetings allow us to do that pretty easily.
Yeah. Brandon.
So I would have to echo pretty much what the other three panelists have said, because it goes back to the last question of being involved with your organizations and what can you get out of that organization. So whether it's continuing education, whether it's YCC with NCBA or our Cattle Health Summit that we put on in the summer with Louisiana Cattlemen's Association, being involved with those organizations, not only getting involved, but getting connected and networking with that group of people.
It is a matter of lifelong learning. I know Zig Ziglar once said, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you rot. And I was at a stockmanship and stewardship clinic once when Kurt Pate used the quote. He said, it's what you learn after you think you know it all that really counts. And I think that's great guidance for all of us. Still ahead, we'll talk with our panel about some of the issues coming out of Washington, D.C. that could have a big impact on their operations. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The 90-day trial demo that we did was a great success. We really tried to go after people that hadn't used Alticid before or hadn't used it for several years or had maybe a not so favorable experience with it prior for whatever reason. If we can show you that this will work over 90 days and it doesn't cost you anything, would you be interested in that?
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the oldest and largest national cattle industry organization working to defend your interests in Washington, D.C. And there are big benefits to being a member. You'll get news you can use in the National Cattlemen, email updates in the NCBA Beef Bulletin, plus big discounts only for NCBA members. Join by calling 866-233-3872 or online at ncba.org.
Welcome back to Cattlemen to Cattlemen as we talk with beef industry professionals about the issues and opportunities that lie ahead in beef cattle production. I'm curious, there's a lot of things going on in Washington, D.C. right now. And Dr. Holt, if you were to pick one or two issues that are kind of keeping you up at night relative to legislative or regulatory issues, what might they be?
One of the big ones for me from a veterinary standpoint is the transition of all antibiotics from over-the-counter to prescription-based. Sure. That's going to take place in June of this year. That's when it's scheduled to take place. And you know, most of our antibiotics that we use on a relevant basis are prescription already. But you know, this law is kind of following up on the veterinary feed directive that we had a couple years ago, and basically it's gonna make it to where we can't walk into a feed store and purchase LA200 or Oxyted or some of our sulfa drugs anymore without the prescription from a veterinarian. You know, so just navigating those waters and, you know, producers having that relationship with a veterinarian so that they can still get access to those, you know, is going to be a little bit of a challenge for us. But just, you know, a little bit of pre-planning and having that relationship with the veterinarian before that takes effect is going to be essential to making that transition as smooth as possible.
And speaking of navigating waters, we were talking about that during break. Go ahead. What are your concerns there?
I thought about that. Of course, the EPA revisiting language regarding navigable waters of the United States, WOTUS, that's deeply concerning for a state like Louisiana when we get as much rainfall as we do. And frankly, a tractor rut can hold water and be considered a waterway. And additionally, just now that we have a new Congress in and we're revisiting Farm Bill talks, maintaining disaster and conservation funding in the Farm Bill is quite timely as well.
Now, I know you two have both gone to D.C. several times for different conferences and events. Brandon, I'm curious, what is the value of young people getting involved and going to Washington, D.C. for events like the Legislative Conference?
Yeah, the first time I went, Kevin, I was with YCC, and it was like that wow moment, you know, just seeing what goes on in the NCBA office and what they're doing there. The importance of being a member of NCBA and going into that room and looking at those ladies, you know, they're looking at posts that's whether it's negative or positive for the cattle industry, and they're there fighting for us. And that's what I tell anybody when I go and I'm telling them or trying to get them to join NCBA. You know, look, it's important to go see what they're doing in Washington, D.C. Go talk to your representatives that's there. Don't call them on the phone, but more importantly, if you go up there and sit in their office and sit there and talk to them, see if you can get something done, yeah.
What would you add, Dan, in terms of the relevance and the importance of participating in those legislative conferences and activities that we have in Washington, D.C.?
Sure. I mean, we have our NCBA staff on the Hill every day working with legislators and regulators on all these issues, but there's really nothing more impactful than for those staff members to hear a story, especially from, you know, younger producers, about how something that's proposed is going to affect them in their daily life. And just like everything else in life, it's really about building those relationships with those staff people. So when there is an issue that comes up, they have a question, they have to advise their boss on how to vote, they might reach out to you and ask your opinion because they need to be educated as well. So it's super important that we get up there and have our voices heard.
I couldn't agree more. Now, when we come back, we'll have more insights from our panel of producers, including their thoughts on the challenge of reaching out to consumers. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
That certain time in the day when you can take a deep breath, knowing your work is done. That's the feeling Aspen products can create. Cost-effective alternatives to name brands that deliver the same results. Qualaxin is one of them. Use it to prevent and treat respiratory disease in your herd. Then breathe easy. Find them at Animal Health International.
Biosecurity is becoming more and more important in the cattle industry. Proper washout of your trailer after hauling certain classes of cattle, changing classes or going to a different facility is all important. Changing your footwear, making sure that your clothing and your footwear is not contaminating different facilities as well. Using a side-by-side or a four-wheeler. All these things, when we go to different yards, different lots, make sure that they come back clean and not spreading disease. DQA, the right way is the only way.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen as we get insights into the concerns and opportunities newer producers face in the beef industry. Now let's turn our attention to consumer wants and demands and how that impacts our business. We hear constantly that consumers want to know more about how their beef is produced, and I'm curious, how are you responding to those kinds of questions and issues, Dr. Holt?
Yeah, so my wife has done an excellent job utilizing social media to make that happen for us. You know, selling farm-raised beef. People want to know a little bit more about how that animal has been raised, how it's been handled. So, you know, she does a really good job of just putting daily posts out, you know, on Instagram and Facebook, you know, and just kind of a, you know, maybe a little blurb about this is what's going on, this is why we do this. And people seem to have responded to that. We get comments all the time about, you know, hey, I really love your Instagram story, I love your post, you know, it's one of my favorite accounts to follow. So it makes us feel like we're doing the right thing there. So that social media is an excellent tool to accomplish that.
And what would you say, Amelia?
So I went to college in Boston and was amazed at how many genuinely intelligent people genuinely thought the food chain started at the grocery store. And as I returned to agriculture, it's been one of my passions to tell our story and significant advocacy training. But connecting with the consumer is so crucial now more than ever, just because of the demographics. We all hear about the 2% of our population is agriculture, our farmers and ranchers, except for that number is probably closer to 1.5% now. But it doesn't matter if it's consumer-facing advocacy or lawmaker advocacy. At the end of the day, the people going to the ballot box are voting on ag issues that they may or may not know anything about. But if they see you on social media, oh, I know so-and-so, let me ask him how that affects, how this policy issue could affect you. Social media is a wonderful tool, but really just talking, whether it's with your neighbors, ball games, school clubs, whatever, just tell your story.
That's a great challenge for all of us. You know, we've talked about a lot of things, covered a lot of ground today relative to some of the challenges and opportunities in the beef business. I'm just curious to get your blink on your level of optimism about the future. Dan, are you optimistic about the future of the beef business?
I'm incredibly optimistic. We take a look at the growing world population. We talk about the quality product we're putting out. When people get a taste of, you know, grain-fed beef from the United States, they want more of it. So with cattle numbers the way they are, with the growing population, with the future we have in front of us, I'm extremely optimistic. There's going to be a lot of opportunities out there that we aren't even aware of right now, and we just need to be patient and take up that challenge when it comes along and keep up our passion and hard work, and I think we're going to be in great shape.
Brandon, are you ready to sell your cows and just focus on the equipment business, or are you going long in this cow business?
No, we're going long. I mean, I'm very optimistic about the cattle industry. Wouldn't be here today if I wasn't, but I'll tell you, I mean, it's a great business to be in. It's a great business to raise your family in, your kids in. It teaches them a lot of things, and I think we're going to see better markets this year. So. Hey, I'm proud to be in the cow business.
Fantastic. Amelia, do you share their optimism?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, what does it look like moving forward? I don't know. Be flexible, but we see young people in the industry. We're here. It may be fewer and far between, but we're here and we're showing up, and I am excited for what the future holds.
And Dr. Holt, what would you add?
I would just again reiterate what the other panelists have said. You know, I'm very optimistic about what the beef industry looks like going forward. You know, we still have great demand for our product, and you know, just very optimistic and look forward to the challenges ahead.
Very encouraging news for sure. Now, when we come back, we'll wrap up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Stay with us.
Have you ever dreamed of owning a brand new John Deere Gator? Well, now's your chance. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association is conducting an online auction for a new Gator, and all proceeds will support their efforts on Capitol Hill on issues that directly impact cattle producers. It's part of John Deere's long-term commitment to the beef industry and NCBA.
We actually have a sponsorship that we've had for many years with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. John Deere is committed to those folks. We're committed to the beef producers. We're committed to make sure that you have the equipment to do the job, perform very well, and we are making sure that we are supporting the NCBA every year
There will be several gators auctioned off throughout the year, so you'll have many chances to bid. Go to ncba.org and click on the banner with the John Deere Gator, or scan the QR code you see on the screen to place your bid.
Did you know you can get reimbursed for attending cattle industry educational events? The Rancher Resilience Grant helps cattle producers attend valuable programs such as Cattlemen's College and Stockmanship and Stewardship training sessions. Local, state, and national events qualify for the grant, and successful applicants can receive money back to help cover registration fees and hotel expenses. To apply for the Rancher Resilience Grant, go to ncba.org and click on the Producer tab. Do you have an upcoming production sale to advertise? Then contact the Cattlemen to Cattlemen marketing team or your breed association to learn more.
Welcome back. As we close this show, I just want to say thank you to each one of you for coming to the show today, for sharing honestly and candidly your experiences, because I think what you've provided is both some encouragement and some great wisdom to so many people out there that are trying to get a foothold in this industry. We appreciate that. Don't forget, every day, NCBA staff in Washington, D.C. and Denver work to protect the interests of folks like our panelists and cattle producers all across the country. Join in the fight to protect our way of life and our heritage by becoming a member. Just call 866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. Well, that wraps up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks again to our panel for their insights, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.